Nathan Cole sat alone in the quiet medical room at the edge of the outpost. It was late, and the stars outside shone like small, cold fires. The desert world around him was silent except for the soft hum of the machines keeping the base alive. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment, hoping for some sleep. The ground shook suddenly, and he almost fell out of his chair. The rumble grew louder, and a light flared outside the small window. Nathan jumped to his feet and ran out to the open landing pad in the sky above. Something was falling fast, a long streak of fire cutting through the darkness. He could see it now, a ship, broken and burning, spiraling toward the ground. He grabbed his medkit and ran toward the crash site. The ship hit the ground with a deep, terrible sound, throwing up sand and smoke. Nathan kept running, his boots sinking into the soft earth as he moved closer. The wreck lay tilted, one side buried in the sand. Metal groaned and hissed. Strange. Lights blinked and died along its surface. He could hear the faint sound of an alarm from inside. Nathan climbed up onto the wreck and looked for a way in. He found a panel torn open by the crash and squeezed through. Inside, it was hot and dark. Smoke filled the air, and sparks fell from the walls. The smell of burning wires and something sweet, almost like flowers. Mixed together, he heard a faint sound. Not a machine this time, but something else. A voice, weak. Nathan moved toward the sound, ducking under beams and stepping over broken pieces of the ship. The voice came again, soft and sharp at the same time. He reached what looked like the control room. The glass dome above was cracked, and sand was spilling through. And there, lying in the middle of the floor, was her. She was tall, even lying down. Her skin shone faintly in the dim light, a soft silver that seemed alive. Her hair was dark and fell like liquid around her shoulders. Her clothes were torn, showing long wounds on her arms and sides. Nathan froze for a second, staring. She wasn't like the other aliens he had seen before. There was something different about her, delicate and dangerous all at once. Her eyes opened just a little. They glowed faintly blue. She tried to lift her hand, but it fell back to the floor. "Don't leave," she whispered, her voice cracking. Nathan knelt beside her. "I'm not leaving," he said. "I'm here to help." He opened his medkit and quickly scanned her wounds. Blood, or something like it, was already pooling around her. It shimmered in the light. He reached for a bandage, but realized right away that she was losing too much, too fast. Her breathing was shallow. She looked at him, her lips barely moving. "Inside the case," she said. He looked around and saw a strange silver box half buried under wreckage. He pulled it free and opened it. Inside were tools and vials of glowing liquid, but no instructions. "What do I do?" he asked, glancing back at her. She only shook her head weakly, her eyes closing again. Nathan cursed under his breath and set the box aside. He tried using the bandages anyway, pressing them over her wounds. They hissed and smoked where they touched her skin, but he didn't stop. He worked quickly, tearing his own sleeves to wrap her injuries when the bandages failed. He could feel her blood on his hands, warm and strange, like quicksilver. Her eyes fluttered open again. She was looking at him, confused and afraid. She tried to speak, but only managed one word. "Why?" Nathan didn't even think. "Because you're alive." "That's enough." She stared at him a long moment, then closed her eyes again. Her breathing slowed even more, and he felt panic rise in his chest. "No," he said. "Stay with me. You hear me? Don't you dare quit on me now." He pulled out a scanner from the box and ran it over her. The small screen flashed with symbols he didn't recognize. Still, one part was clear enough. Critical, incompatible, failing. Nathan sat back for a second, thinking. The vials in the box glowed softly, but whatever they weren't helping. He looked at her again, at the cuts on her arms and the faint tremble in her fingers. Then an idea came to him. It was reckless, stupid even, but it might be the only chance. He grabbed a syringe from his medkit, pulled off his glove, and stuck the needle into his own arm. Blood red, human blood, filled the tube. He held it up to the light. Worth a shot, he muttered, and injected it into one of the ports on her arm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her chest rose sharply, and her eyes flew open, glowing brighter now. She gasped and reached out, grabbing his sleeve with surprising strength. Nathan almost fell backward. Her fingers dug into his arm, and her mouth opened like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Her wounds began to close in front of his eyes, the silver of her skin knitting itself back together. Her breathing became steady. She lay still after that, her eyes on him, unblinking. He felt his own heart racing, his arm aching where he'd drawn his blood. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clearer than before. You gave yourself for me. Nathan sat back on his heels and nodded. Yeah, he said simply, couldn't let you die. She looked at him for a long time, something unreadable in her glowing eyes. Then she whispered one more word, before she drifted back into sleep. Mine. Nathan stared at her, confused, but he didn't let go of her hand. Not yet. Outside, the wind howled over the desert, carrying the faint smell of smoke and stars. He stayed by her side through the night, watching her chest rise and fall, wondering who she really was and what he had just done. Nathan sat on the floor of the wrecked ship, watching her sleep. The strange silver glow of her skin was softer now, and her breathing had become even. He still held her hand, afraid to let go, afraid she might slip away again if he did. Outside, the wind blew across the sand, whistling through cracks in the ship. His own arm ached where he had taken his blood. His sleeve was stained, but he didn't care. He kept looking at her face, wondering who she was and why she had fallen. Here, on this empty world. Hours passed, and finally she stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, bright and clear now, glowing faintly blue in the dim light. She looked at him for a long time without saying anything. You're awake, Nathan said quietly. Good. You gave me a scare. She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand his words. Her lips parted, and she spoke in her strange, sharp language. The words meant nothing to him, but her voice was softer now, almost gentle. I don't understand, he admitted. But you're alive. That's what matters. She blinked, then tried to sit up. Nathan quickly reached out to steady her, but she shook her head and moved on her own. Her body still trembled a little, but she managed to sit up straight. You should rest, Nathan said. She ignored him and looked down at her arms. The wounds were almost gone, leaving faint lines where the cuts had been. She touched them lightly, then looked back at him. Your blood, she said, her voice rough but understandable now. Nathan froze. He hadn't thought she would know what he had done. Yeah, he said slowly. It worked, I guess. She stared at him, her glowing eyes narrowing. Not possible, she whispered. He shrugged. Well, it happened. You're alive. She lowered her gaze, silent for a moment. Then she looked at him again. Why? He didn't answer right away. How could he explain? He didn't know himself. He just knew he couldn't stand there and watch her die. Finally, he said, because I couldn't let you die. That's it. She studied him as though his answer made no sense at all. Then she closed her eyes, as if thinking deeply. After a long pause, she opened them again and spoke, her voice firmer now. You gave blood, gave life. No one ever done this. Not for my kind. Nathan frowned. What do you mean, don't? You have doctors, medicine. She shook her head. We take care of our own. No others allowed you, not one of us. Yet you gave. He felt a strange chill at her words. He didn't understand everything she said, but he could feel the weight in her voice. She tried to stand then, and he jumped to his feet to help her. She took his arm, her fingers cold but strong, and rose slowly. She stood tall, taller than he expected, her silver skin catching the faint light. She wavered slightly, but she did not fall. You should stay here, Nathan said. The wreck is stable enough, and I can know, she interrupted, her voice sharp. Not safe here. Others may come. He glanced at the door of the wreck and then back at her. Others, who? Are you in danger? She didn't answer, just looked at him with something like worry in her eyes. He sighed. Fine, then let's get you out of here. Can you walk? She nodded. Nathan picked up his medkit and helped her out of the wreck. The cool night air outside felt strange after the hot, smoky inside. The desert stretched out before them, quiet and endless, the stars above shining brighter now. She looked up at the sky, her expression distant. Nathan couldn't tell what she was thinking, but it didn't look like relief. He led her back toward the outpost, walking slowly so she could keep up. As they walked, she kept glancing at him. Her glowing eyes studied him as though he was some strange creature she couldn't figure out. Finally, she spoke. What is your name? He looked at her in surprise. Nason Cole. And you? She hesitated before answering. Lyris, she said quietly. Lyris, he repeated. Nice to meet you, I guess. She tilted her head at his words, then looked away. They walked in silence for a while. The wind picked up, throwing sand around them, but Nathan kept moving, keeping her steady when she stumbled. Finally, they reached the outpost. It was a small building, barely more than a shelter, with a few rooms and a tower. Nathan guided her inside and sat her down. The next morning, Nathan woke up with a start. He blinked at the soft light filtering through the small windows of the outpost. The room was quiet, the sound of the wind outside the only noise. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he remembered. Lyris. He quickly stood up and walked to the small medical room where she was resting. She was still asleep, lying on the cot, her chest rising and falling steadily. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the light. Nathan watched her for a moment, wondering what she was thinking. He didn't understand why she had said she would give back. What did that even mean? Nathan moved closer, checking her vitals on the monitor. Everything seemed stable. Her breathing was regular, and her pulse was steady. But there was something about her that worried him. Her eyes, when they were open, seemed so distant, as though she was always looking at something far away. He sat down in the chair beside her, watching her sleep. He had never met anyone like her before. After a while, Lyris stirred. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking as if she hadn't quite remembered where she was. Nathan was quick to speak, not wanting her to feel alone. You're okay. You're safe here. She turned her head toward him, her glowing blue eyes focused on him for a long moment. Then, without saying anything, she slowly sat up. "You should rest more," Nathan said gently. "I am fine," she replied in her soft voice. Her words were slow, but clear. "I have healed." Nathan frowned. "You've healed, but you still need time to rest." Lyris didn't argue. She looked at the wall, her eyes distant again. "You gave your blood," she said quietly, almost as if she was speaking to herself. "Yeah," Nathan replied, not sure what to say. "I did. You were hurt." She turned her head back to him, her eyes studying him as if she was trying to understand something. "You gave life," she said, her voice soft but intense. Not many would. Nathan didn't know how to respond to that. He didn't think of himself as some kind of hero. He just did what felt right. "I didn't think about it," he said. I couldn't let you die." Lyris's gaze softened slightly, and for a moment Nathan thought he saw a flicker of something like gratitude in her eyes. But it was gone quickly. "I do not understand," she said after a long silence. "Your kind would risk so much for someone you do not know." Nathan shrugged. "We're not all the same. Some of us, we just do what feels right." She seemed to consider his words. "I have not met many who would risk so much," she said slowly. "Well," Nathan said with a half smile, "maybe you've just been around the wrong people." Lyris didn't smile back, but there was something in her eyes that made Nathan feel like they were starting to understand each other. Just a little. They sat in silence for a while, the quiet of the outpost filling the space between them. Nathan wasn't sure what to say next, but he knew he couldn't just sit there forever. Finally, he stood up. "I'm going to check the comms, see if there's any word from the base or any other ships nearby." Lyris nodded without speaking. Nathan walked over to the comm station, his mind racing. He hadn't told her yet, but he was afraid. The ship that crashed it had been in terrible shape. He couldn't help but wonder if someone was out there looking for her. Someone who wouldn't be as friendly as he was. He sat down at the comm panel and tried to get a signal. The static on the screen was almost painful, but he didn't give up. After a few moments, he managed to get a weak signal. "This is Base Outpost 7. Please respond," Nathan said into the mic. He waited, listening to the static. Nothing. He tried again, speaking louder this time. "This is Nathan Cole, medic at Base 7. We have an alien, a female. She's alive, but she needs help." There was a long silence, then a crackling voice came through the static. "Nathan Cole, this is Command. What is going on? We've been trying to contact you. Are you in danger?" Nathan felt a rush of relief. No danger. But there was a crash. An alien ship. She's from a royal line, I think. I need help. I don't know what's going on." The voice on the other end paused, and for a long moment, Nathan wondered if they had cut the signal again. Then the voice spoke again, quieter this time. "Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage with the alien. We're sending a ship. Stay put." Nathan blinked. "What? Why?" "She's injured." "I just wait." The voice cut in sharply. "Help is on the way. Stay put." The comms cut off, leaving Nathan staring at the screen. His heart pounded in his chest. What did they mean, "do not engage"? What was going on? He stood up and turned toward Lyris. She was watching him, her expression unreadable. "They're sending help," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Everything's going to be okay." Lyris didn't answer at first. Then, after a long moment, she said, "They will come for me." Nathan frowned. "What do you mean? Of course they will. They'll help you." Lyris shook her head. "No, not help. Then what?" Nathan asked, his voice growing more urgent. "They will take me," she said quietly, "for what I am." Nathan stared at her, confused. He didn't understand. "What do you mean by that? What do they want with you?" Lyris looked away, her eyes distant again. "They want what is mine, what is in me, what you gave." Nathan didn't understand, but one thing was clear. Whatever was going on, it wasn't good. He walked toward her, his voice firm. "We need to leave, now." But Lyris didn't move. "They will find me," she said softly. "And when they do, you will not be safe." Nathan stood still, the weight of her words sinking in. For the first time, he wondered if he had made a mistake in saving her. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine as he stared at Lyris. Her words echoed in his mind, and the sense of danger in the air grew stronger. She was right. Something wasn't right. "What do you mean?" Nathan asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "Who are they? Who's coming for you?" Lyris didn't answer right away. She was staring out the small window of the outpost, her eyes lost in the distance. Her lips were pressed together tightly, and for the first time since he met her, she looked vulnerable. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am the last of my line, the royal bloodline of my people. When I crash-landed here, I was followed." Nathan frowned. "Followed? But you're the only one here." The ship was meant to be a secret," she interrupted, her tone sharp. "It was supposed to be a place of refuge, a place to hide from those who would use my blood for power, but they found me. They always find me." Nathan felt a knot form in his stomach. He didn't understand, but he could hear the fear in her voice. It was real. Who is they? He asked again, his voice low. Lyra's single quotes, as gaze finally shifted to him. Her eyes filled with something he hadn't seen before. "Fear. The ones who want to control us," she said. "My blood. It's more than just blood. It holds power that my people have used for centuries. But it's also power that others want. The ones who want to rule, they need it. They need me." Nathan swallowed hard. He was just a medic, a man who had never been caught up in anything this dangerous. Now, here he was, standing next to an alien woman whose blood seemed to be worth everything. "So, they're coming for you," Nathan said slowly. "To take you, to use you." Lyris nodded. "Yes. And when they find me, they will stop at nothing to get what they want." Nathan's mind raced. He had to do something. He couldn't just let them take her. "We have to leave," he said urgently. "We can't stay here. We need to move." Lyris didn't move. She remained seated on the cat, her eyes distant again. "They will find me, no matter where I go. It is my fate." "No," Nathan said firmly. "I won't let that happen. I can help you. We'll get you off this planet. I'll figure something out." Lyris shook her head slowly. "You cannot protect me. They are too strong, too many." "You're wrong," he insisted. "I've already saved you once. I can do it again. I won't let them take you." Lyris looked at him, her eyes searching his face. For the first time, he saw a flicker of something like hope in her gaze. "You do not understand," she said, softly. "My people, my blood, it is not like yours. I do not wish to be saved. It is too late for that." Nathan felt a pang of confusion. What are you saying? Are you just going to give up? No, she replied, her voice steady, but sad. But I must face what is coming. I cannot run forever. Nathan's heart pounded. He couldn't just accept that. He couldn't leave her to face whatever was coming on her own. You're not alone, he said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. Lyris didn't answer at first. She looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she stood up. You are stubborn, she said quietly, her tone softening just a little. You do not understand the danger. I don't need to understand, Nathan said, his voice determined. I just need to know what we're up against. She hesitated, then nodded. They will come for me in a ship, she said, a large ship full of soldiers. They will track me down, and when they do, they will stop at nothing to take me. How long until they get here? Nathan asked. Hours. No more than a day, she replied, her voice growing more distant again. Nathan took a deep breath. He had to act quickly. He couldn't waste any more time. Okay, he said. We'll move. We'll leave before they get here. I'll make sure they don't find us. Lyris finally looked at him again, her gaze softening just a little. I will not make you stay, she said, but if you wish to help, you must be prepared. They will not stop, Nathan nodded. I'm ready. They gathered what little they had, and Nathan packed his medkit. He didn't know what they would face, but he knew he couldn't let her go through it alone. Nathan sat in the small bunker, his mind racing. He couldn't keep up the charade much longer. Lyris's words, her fears, were all too real. Something was coming. He could feel it in the air, thick and heavy. He paced back and forth, glancing occasionally at Lyris. She was sitting by the corner, her eyes closed as though she was meditating. Her body was still, but her mind seemed to be working at a pace far faster than his. We need to leave, Nathan said after a long silence. Liv didn't open her eyes. Where will we go? They will find us. Not if we stay hidden, he replied, though his voice lacked confidence. I've got a small escape shuttle hidden not far from here. We can use that to get to a safer location. Lyris opened her eyes slowly, her gaze focused on him. And you believe this shuttle will save us? She asked. It's our best chance, Nathan said. I've worked with it before. It's fast, and it can blend into the background. If we leave now, we'll be ahead of them. Lyris stood up, her movements fluid and graceful despite the exhaustion in her body. She walked over to the small window of the bunker and peered out at the quiet desert. They will come. They have never failed to find me before. Nathan clenched his fists, trying to shake the doubt that was creeping into his mind. He had to stay focused. They won't find us. Not this time. There was a long pause. Lyris didn't look at him. She just stood there, her back turned, watching the endless stretch of desert. You do not understand, she said softly. The power they seek is not just mine, it is the bloodline. The key to an ancient force. Nathan stepped closer. His curiosity piqued. What do you mean, I don't get it? Your blood holds power. She turned around slowly, meeting his gaze. Yes, she said, her voice low and serious. It's the power of my people, a force passed down from generation to generation, and those who want it will stop at nothing to get it. It's more than just a few soldiers coming to take me. It's a whole army, led by someone who knows how to use the power. Nathan took a step back. So, they're not just after you. They want your blood for something else. Yes, Lyris replied, her voice hard. And they will not stop. Not until they have it. He was quiet for a moment, trying to digest the weight of her words. But what if they don't get to you in time? What if we get out of here? They will come for me, she said again, as though trying to make him understand. They always do. He exhaled sharply, frustrated. And you're just going to let them, after everything we've been through? Lyris's gaze softened just a little. She walked toward him and placed a hand on his arm, the coolness of her skin a reminder of the difference between them. I am not letting them, but I cannot run forever, Nathan. He stared at her, unsure of what to say. He had come so far, to protect her, and now she was telling him that there was nothing more they could do. I won't leave you, he said firmly. If they come for you, we fight. Together. She looked at him for a long time, as though weighing his words. Then, to his surprise, she nodded. Together, then. Nathan's chest tightened with a strange sense of relief. It wasn't over. Yet, they could still fight. He glanced toward the door of the bunker, his mind already working on their next move. They couldn't just sit here and wait for the inevitable. He had to act fast. Let's get to the shuttle, he said, his voice more confident now. We leave now. Lyris nodded, and they moved quickly, stepping out of the bunker and into the quiet desert air. The sun was still low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand. Nathan led the way, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. The shuttle was only a few miles away, hidden beneath a rocky outcrop. It was small, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Nathan had used it for emergencies before, but he never thought he'd be using it for something like this. As they moved, Lyris stayed close, her steps light but cautious. Every now and then she would glance at the horizon, her eyes sharp. Nathan couldn't help but feel the same sense of urgency. The air was thick with tension, and he knew that they had to move fast. How much longer? Lyris asked after a while. We're almost there, Nathan replied, his voice steady, but just as he spoke, a sound broke the silence. It was faint. At first, but then it grew louder, a low rumbling that vibrated the ground beneath their feet. Nathan stopped dead in his tracks, his heart racing. What is that? He whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Lyris's single quote's expression didn't change. She was looking toward the horizon, her gaze unwavering. They're coming. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. He had hoped to get to the shuttle before they found them, but it was too late. The rumbling sound grew louder, and Nathan could see it now. A ship, large and dark, hovering just above the desert. Its engines hummed with power, and it was heading straight for them. We don't have much time, Nathan said, his voice urgent. Lyris didn't move. She stood there, her eyes locked on the ship as it approached. They are here, she said. Quietly, they will take me. Nathan grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the shuttle. No, not if I can help it. Come on, we've got to move. They ran, the sand kicking up beneath their feet as they made their way toward the shuttle. Nathan's heart was pounding in his chest. The ship was getting closer. They had to hurry. Finally, they reached the shuttle. Nathan worked quickly, punching in the codes to unlock it. The door slid open with a hiss, and he ushered Lyris inside. Get in, he said. Hurry. She hesitated for a moment, looking back at the ship in the distance. Then, with a final glance at Nathan, she stepped inside. He followed her, closing the door behind them. He strapped himself into the pilot's seat and began to power up the shuttle. The ship was almost on top of them now. Nathan's hands shook as he worked the controls. Hold on, he said, his voice tight. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and it shot into the air, darting toward the clouds above. Nathan kept his eyes on the instruments, trying to keep them steady as the ship behind them loomed closer. They were escaping, but Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The shuttle climbed higher and higher into the sky, its engines screaming as Nathan pushed it to the limit. He kept his eyes on the small screen in front of him, watching the dark ship below as it grew smaller in the distance. Lyris sat beside him, her hands gripping the seat tightly. Her eyes were fixed on the stars ahead, but her body was tense. "We made it," Nathan said, though his voice was shaky. "Not yet," Lyris replied softly. "They will follow." Nathan glanced at her, confused. "But we're faster, aren't we? We're already out of their range." Lyris shook her head. "Their reach is longer than you think." He swallowed hard, but didn't say anything more. He focused on flying, guiding the shuttle toward the upper atmosphere. The blackness of space was just ahead. Finally, they broke free of the planet's pull. The stars stretched out around them, cold and bright. The silence of space settled in, heavy and still. Nathan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "We're clear," he said. "At least for now." Lyris didn't answer. She was still staring out the window, her expression unreadable. "What now?" Nathan asked after a moment. She turned to look at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the cockpit. "We must find shelter," she said. "Somewhere they cannot reach us. Somewhere hidden." Nathan nodded. "There are a few old stations near the outer rim. Nobody uses them anymore. We can hide there for a while." Lyris closed her eyes for a moment, as if considering his words. Then she nodded. "Good. Take us there." Nathan adjusted the controls and set a course for the nearest abandoned station. The engines hummed softly as the shuttle glided through space. For a while, there was silence between them. Nathan wanted to ask her more questions about her people, about the power she carried, but he didn't know where to start. Finally, he spoke. "Why me?" he asked quietly. Lyris opened her eyes and looked at him. "What do you mean? Why did you let me help you?" he asked. "Why did you trust me?" She was quiet for a long time, as though the question surprised her. Then she said, "Because you gave without asking for anything in return. You gave your blood. You gave your life. No one else has done that for me." Nathan looked away, his cheeks growing warm. "I didn't do it to impress you," he said. "I know," she replied. They flew on, the stars blurring past them. An hour later, the shuttle's alarm beeped. Nathan frowned and checked the screen. His stomach dropped. "They're tracking us," he said. "How is that possible?" Lyris's face hardened. "I told you, they will always find me." Nathan cursed under his breath. He adjusted the controls and pushed the engines harder. The shuttle shook slightly, but he didn't slow down. The dark shape of the enemy ship appeared behind them, its lights flashing faintly in the distance. "They're gaining on us," Nathan muttered. "Hold on." He steered the shuttle toward a nearby asteroid field. It was risky, but it might be their only chance. The rocks loomed ahead, massive and spinning slowly in the darkness. Nathan wove the shuttle between them, dodging the sharp edges and narrow gaps. Lyris held onto her seat, her gaze steady but her body tense. The enemy ship followed, its movements smooth and precise. It fired a bright beam of light that just missed the back of the shuttle. Nathan gritted his teeth and pushed the shuttle even harder. "Come on," he whispered. Just a little farther. He darted between two large asteroids, and the enemy ship hesitated for a moment before following. That small delay gave Nathan the chance he needed. He found a small cave in the